You're watching Stock Watch. I'm Bright Kumalo, and joining me to unpack your stock-related questions today is David Shapiro from Sasfin Securities and Sanelisiwe Tofile from All Weather Capital. Be sure to send in your questions through email at stockwatch@bdtv.co.za or via SMS on 41392 or on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Business Day TV using the hashtag StockWatch. Gentlemen, it's been an interesting couple of days in the markets. I mean, we lost the Monday to President's Day, so the U.S. individuals were sleeping there, so there was no markets. But yesterday, the markets closed in the green, and today they're in the red. What's the direction? What's your feel, Sanelisiwe, of the markets as we are both local and offshore? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a holder's market? Or are you waiting for opportunities as and when they come?
So, I think markets go in cycles, but, oftentimes you'll be in a trend, might be an upward trend or a downward trend, or sometimes they'll go in no direction. You just have volatility. And I think we are in a period now where you've got a lot of up and down, a lot of volatility, a lot of political, a lot of macro noise, a lot of headlines sort of swinging the markets one direction or another. And I think that's the kind of market that we're in at the moment. You're not seeing a clear trend. I mean, a trend might appear, later on, maybe 6 months from now, but right now we're dealing with a lot of volatility. So like you already mentioned, it's up the one day and down the next. I think, that's kind of the challenge for active managers at the moment, is to being able to manage that volatility. Obviously for some as maybe stock pickers or active managers, they might relish this opportunity to be buying and selling stocks in this volatile environment. But for some, it might be a bit tricky to manage. Yeah,
it's being a long-term investor sometimes is very tricky, like you say. Shapiro, on the S&P 500, we're up 4% year to date. It's nothing to be happy about, but nothing to be sad about also. Like you said, it's Goldilocks, yeah?
Well, we were forecasting 10% for the whole year. So 4% in 2 months, I can live with it. I think you can't keep going at that rate. But, we are in a difficult period. We just completed the earnings season, or we're just getting the last bit of it. But, generally against a man like Trump, where every day you're not quite sure what he's going to say and what kind of effect he's going to have on the market. And I think every day he comes out with more tariff increases, but nothing seems to be applied. There's been no real he hasn't really given us any detail. So I think markets are actually holding up very well against a lot of, very difficult background. So I'm fundamentally bullish. And I think the results that we saw that came out of the US, I think reinforced that. So we just got to get through a couple of months. Also, we haven't got Powell. We're not going to get anything on that front for a couple of months. I don't think there are going to be surprises. But, if we can just tread or go sideways, with the up and down that Sonny's been talking about, that's fine for me. I can live with it. I'm still very, very bullish on tech, and I think AI is going to be still a very big driving force in global markets.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's jump into our questions here. We've got a few. The first one is about EOH. So stock EOH, a buy after its run-up, executive changes and results. This is from Mike. I'll start with you, David. Sounds like you like it a lot.
No, I didn't know to change this name, and I saw this Iola or something.
I was so confused.
I know. Anyway, look, new management come in, kicked out the old management. It should be an area which does very well. It's on the IT side. Every company needs IT. Every company has to keep renewing its IT and enhancing it and upgrading it. So they've been dragged down by really very poor management in the past and a lot of scandals around it. So hopefully new management can take it off this very low base and pick it up. But there are a lot of legacy issues that it has to maneuver through, or through obstacles that it has to negotiate. But I'm not. I don't. You know, I hardly look at it. It's only that I learned its new name recently, so that's why I smiled.
Sanelisiwe, we need your objective view. As I see, David Shapiro still has his old hat on.
Yeah, I mean, to be
Sanelisiwe,
fair,
your age?
even with the old hat, I think is probably touched on the points. I don't know if there's necessarily anything else to add there. I mean, Stephen Fakola and his team previously did a great cleanup job.
Yeah.
From I guess 2 management teams prior now, and they took it over. They cleaned up the corporate structures and they removed a lot of the added costs. Obviously, they helped in kind of cleaning up the reputation as well. And that kind of bore fruit as well for the share price. And then obviously, I'm supposing now the name change is probably the next level of trying to get the next stage of share price appreciation, and obviously the new management coming in. So, I mean, hoping that they do achieve that, wishing them the best, but it is one that kind of fell by the wayside. Maybe this is an opportunity for investors to start being interested again.
No, interesting. But if history is anything to go by, changing your name is not good enough. You need clients. And if you don't have clients, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have a question here. I'm not sure if you gents follow any crypto. It says, what is your take on the buzz around Ripple, which is XRP, and being adopted by Japanese banks? Do you want to take that, Sanelisiwe or Shapiro? This is a hard one.
Don't even ask me about crypto. I'm just waving a white flag, just I surrender.
Sanelisiwe.
I have very little feel for that side of the market.
Yeah, I'm afraid it still feels a bit speculative for us as well. I mean, I don't even know what you said, what name you said. The only crypto I know of is Bitcoin and Doge.
I guess maybe that's the message. One should buy Bitcoin and Doge and forget about Ripple or whatever. More questions on IOCO. Here's a question from Theo. It says, India is a fast-growing economy in the world, and the Satrix MSCI India has underperformed for several months now. Any reason for this? Shapiro?
Yeah, India is such a difficult market to read. I mean, it's a huge economy and it's massively strong, but it has been slowing down. I always find one of the issues is I say, okay, I like India. What do I buy? and it's very difficult to say buy certain companies. You can go into Europe even now, or the UK or America or anywhere. You can find a couple of stocks. I can't find that with India. I've got very little feel for where to go in individual stocks. And so you rather look for businesses that might be dealing with India. And even in that case, it's not easy to find. We know it's a massive economy. We know it's growing and doing well, but it's very difficult to kind of materialize that into a few choices.
Yeah, and the one name everyone knows, which is Reliance Industries.
Reliance, yeah.
Yeah, they also get their own problems, so it's very hard to navigate that market. Sanelisiwe, anything else to add on the India front?
Yeah, I think, the Reliance issues, as you mentioned, but also the fact that, if you look at EM, there really has only been one big player, being China, for the past, Lord knows how long.
Yeah.
And over the past few years, EM investors particularly have been looking at other areas. There's been talk about Vietnam, Indonesia, the likes of Brazil, and all those kind of other areas. And India kind of popped its head up as one of the alternatives. And I think that's really what's happened here. Had a few months of strong performance, guys kind of maybe dusting off their thoughts on India and getting boots on the ground. And I think really we're seeing a bit of a pullback here now after a very strong performance period. I can't say one way or the other way it's going to go, but there is a bit of a resurgence now with regards to China kind of taking the more business-friendly stance. So maybe there's a bit of resurgence out of China. But yeah, in the context of EM markets, you always have to look for various alternatives. There's various other markets to look at as opposed to China.
Yeah, you make a great point there. China had an exceptional week last week, but it's still got a long way to dig itself out from COVID, which, most markets have gone out of that ditch. So it's going to be a long turnaround story. Quickly, Shapiro, before we go to the break, this is from, I can't see who's it from. It says, hi, my Anglo-American Platinum shares are down 28%. Should I just sell and take the loss, or there's any chance of an upside? I know you covered this one very well, Shapiro.
Yeah, I look at it every day. I looked at the results. I've looked at the, it's going to be on its own now. It's going to have to survive. There are various reports. I was reading the Business Day editorial today, which was very critical of what Anglos did, taking out all the money and leaving very little for them to maneuver with. But I think management there believes that they can turn it around and they can grow. We've been waiting for platinum to turn around for I don't know how long, and it still remains plugged in the 950 area without any real move out of that. And from a production point of view, it's kind of sideways. There's never any great movement from that point of view. Costs still remain an issue and the other things. So for the meantime, I'm prepared to wait, because if it does turn around, then it's going to be an incredible turnaround, and there'll be plenty of time to buy. So, from my point of view, I just watch from the sidelines and see where this company is going to go. But you don't have to be in a hurry, Bright. I don't think there's any massive hurry to get in or to try and call the bottom.
We still want to hear your thoughts on Anglo-Plat, Sanelisiwe, and then we want to change ship into logistics after this.
Yeah, so I mean, Anglo-Plat it's an interesting one, because obviously on the one hand you've got the dynamics happening in the platinum market. It's been a weak market where you get platinum, palladium, rhodium. There's various reasons around that, but the main one is really around auto demand around the world. Obviously, EVs have been in the headlines. I'm not sure how much share they necessarily have taken on the ground, but they're certainly in the headlines. And so that's put a lot of pressure on the platinum shares. And then with regards to Anglo-Plat itself, there's been this sort of big corporate restructure from Anglo American, and that's has put a bit of an overhang on all this potential Anglo-Plat shares that were likely going to come into the market once they unbundle.
Yes.
So that's kind of put a bit of pressure there. And the one thing I think perhaps investors didn't like over the past couple of days, I mean, the result itself was solid, but I think the fact that Anglo American, I think as David has mentioned, firstly, stripped out a massive dividend out of the
special dividend result. Yeah.
And the second thing being that they are holding back 20%, 19.9% of their shareholding in Anglo-Plat, and they will release that at a later date, they say. Still keeps a bit of an overhang and a further supply of shares that likely will come into the market at some point. So that's kind of making investors a bit cautious on Anglo-Plat. But I think generally with this unbundling, it should increase the free float of Anglo-Plat in the market. So that should cause some demand from the share price, especially for index inclusion and the likes. But this overhang of this remaining 20% might put a bit of a cap on the share price. So we have clarity on when it's going to come.
Yeah, look,
come into the market.
I'm with you there, Sanelisiwe, because management needs to make a decision. Are we really dumping this thing and leaving? What's the whole thing of just being a cloud there and just casting a dark cloud on the company when you should just leave fully and then let them chart their own path? Here's a question from Chris. He says, good evening. I would like to hear the panel's view on Trendco if they're following it. Why did the share price drop so much today? Is this a buying opportunity? I believe that they are paying some special dividends or dividends soon. David, I saw that you saw it went down a lot.
I saw the fall in the share price, and I'm not quite sure what the background to that was. Whether because there was quite a bit there. I mean, the volume was quite significant today. It was like almost 40 million rand or something for a small company. Like when I say for a small company like that, it's not a big. It has a market cap of around about 170 million, which is not huge. So I know it from the past. I mean, it used to deal in containers and was very popular from that point of view. But for a smaller business like this, it's so difficult to read it and to give you really a well thought opinion. I just know it's on the market. I know historically the background of where it came from and what it used to deal in, but I don't watch it that carefully to give to give any real guidance. But I
Yeah,
saw
I
it
mean,
fell. Why? I don't know.
it's interesting
I
it's
have
down
no
that
idea.
much today because I remember this company used to trade around 70 rands not so long ago, 2016, 2017, and it's been
Yeah.
on a downtrend since then. And can we salvage this one, Sanelisiwe?
Well, I mean, I think today's share price is really more of a technical matter. I think you already mentioned it in your initial comment around the special dividends. I mean, the share price was trading, around sort of the 850, 820 level, and I think they issued a 7 Rand 50 or 7 Rand 30 special dividend. So
Wow.
that's kind of what happens when you issue the dividend. The share price will probably adjust by an equal amount. I mean, they were sitting on a large amount of cash after they've done sort of a wind up of one of their core businesses, and I believe they sold off and they declared a special dividend, and that's kind of what's happened today. The dividend has been now paid. It's on ex-div, as they say in the market, and that's the 7 Rand odd that you see in the fall in the share price, or the cash being distributed to shareholders.
Okay, so, but long term, is it something you look at?
I actually don't know what's remaining in that company
Exactly,
anymore now.
that's
that
my
they've-
issue. Yeah.
So I can't make any kind of
Insightful
days-
insight, yeah.
Back in the older days, this used to be a good rand hedge because they used to trade in containers, or lease containers for which they used to receive dollars. So I think in the 1990s, that's why I'm saying my history goes back to that, and I remember it as a rand hedge, as a very attractive rand hedge. But a lot of water has passed under the bridge since then. I've got no feel. I'm actually surprised it's such a small business now.
Yeah, it's
I thought
scary. Yeah.
I thought it would be a lot more valuable than it is.
Yeah, we have another question from Raj Moodley. This is an interesting spelling of his surname. It says, hi, can the panel give me a view on CAP, or is it CAP? Is it a buy? He wants to know whether it's a buy or not. I mean, this thing's been around for a really long time as well, and it's last I checked, the management was, top brass. So Sanelisiwe CAP.
The difficulty with CUP is that you've got a sort of a mixture of businesses that are all in a bit of a tricky trading period at the moment. So you've got, the Sasfin business, which is chemicals, that they bought. I think it's, I don't want to lie here, but maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it's quite a cyclical business because it's chemicals. It's offshore. It's a tricky market to get your head around, and it makes their profits quite volatile. So that's the one problem with that business. And obviously, as we know from the likes of Sasfin, that there's weakness in the chemical markets at the moment. And then you've got other businesses that are, like Rostonic, that does, bedding and those kind of consumer type of products. And that's also, after a period of quite good performances, has probably come into a bit of a slump. We've got the automotive business that's kind of dealing with the kind of lower demand in vehicles. I mean, you've seen the NAMSA numbers tick up in January, but I mean, that's off a quite low base. So still quite a soft automotive market. And then the timber business, which also kind of eventually makes, consumer-related timber products, which has been a quite stable business for them. But I still get the sense that, the consumer environment is not the most supportive, for the end business there. The valuation has been, relatively attractive. But again, if you're not seeing any growth, even if the PE is low, then it becomes difficult for investors to come in. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily a buying opportunity. You really need to see an increase or a change in sort of the consumer environment and seeing the
Yes.
activity on the ground come in before you go into the likes of CUP. Also being now what I would call, very, very low, mid or small cap, it's not going to be the top of mind type of share for investors, I don't think.
Yeah, okay, no, you are very thorough on that one. Maybe I give David Shapiro a different stock. So Lenro is asking whether Anglo-American PLC is a buy, since Anglo-Plat, we're not so bullish on them.
we're still in the wrong time. It's too early to really get very enthusiastic about commodity companies. There's no growth in the global economy. China's not doing anything. It's got its own issues. It's trying very hard. Xi Jinping is trying very hard to stabilize the economy. He's now getting all of the Jack Ma together and other business leaders in a hope of getting them enthusiastic about doing business back in China and revving things up there, and he's also worried about tariffs. So without a China to build roads to nowhere, and I think it's going to be very difficult. And on the other hand, we've got the EV side of it, which is hasn't taken off and isn't fulfilling the kind of expectations that we expected for commodities. So it's early days. You don't have to do anything. You can watch what's happening. People are enthusiastic about the outlook. And Anglo's, they've got good copper companies. They've got good copper interests in that. We saw what happened to Kumba. It's still under a lot of pressure. And then you've got De Beers. De Beers
still has its own problems.
Almost the stalwart of the Joburg Stock Exchange in its day, is becoming a noose around their neck. It's very, very difficult. So I'm not that sold on getting into commodities at the moment.
Okay, fantastic. Last question or second last question for you, Sanelisiwe, is on Discovery. Apparently they crossed 200 rands, and is it a buy at these levels? Would you be looking to buy Discovery at north of $200? Finally, they've crossed basically their 2014, 2013 levels.
Geez, it's been a long road. Look, exactly. they put out a trading statement earlier this morning. It was quite a strong trading statement. Profits up between 30-35%.
Yeah.
So well received by the market. I think the management is always bullish around the various markets that they're operating in, always telling a quite optimistic story, which it's up to the investors, I suppose, to decide if they believe it or not. For my part, I think even if you take kind of the earnings growth, the valuation does seem full. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's a sell or anything, but I'm not rushing in to buy at this valuation level.
I see.
They have good momentum, but I think maybe it's a bit full in terms of valuation.
Any thoughts on Discovery, old man, since you use all of their products these days?
When actuaries produce normalized profits,
no.
One's got to say, okay, what does that mean? Because I can never understand their numbers. And anyway, I just
okay. So let's say
wait for the results. Let's wait for the results. Look at the cash flow and understand how they got to where they are.
Okay,
but I won't take anything away from the share price.
Okay, the moment of truth. Then give me your stock pick, rather, David Shapiro. What are you bullish on today?
I've gone back to NVIDIA.
NVIDIA?
Yeah.
Why?
You know why, Bright? Because I've been watching the stock very carefully, and it's always there's been huge selling positions in it. And I think the sellers are gone and the buyers are returning. We're getting the results shortly. I'm a bit nervous about that because, the expectations are high.
Yes.
But suddenly over the last couple of days or weeks, they've been gaining momentum, even at a time when the markets are down. The buyers are returning. So I take that as a good sign. I think the sellers are out. The weak holders have left. And we're going to get new momentum in the stock, depending on what the results produce. But I've got a good feeling about it at these levels,
Yeah, David Shapiro, you're probably one of the few old people who can say NVIDIA. They always say NVIDIA for some reason. Sanelisiwe, your stock pick for tonight?
I know David doesn't like the commodities at the moment, but my stock pick is going to be Anglo Gold. They also released results today, which were slightly behind market expectations. So you saw it kind of fall off a bit. And the guidance on the cost is a bit higher than what people expected. But I think there's still a few positive catalysts there. The dividend policy has been changed. It's more generous now in terms of the dividend policy. I think they're in a nice cash flow position now. You see that the free cash flow reaching $1 billion, almost $1 billion. So and the balance sheet is ungeared. And they still have not been included into some of the US indices post-listing last year. So this is their fourth quarter of producing positive profits now in the US after being listed. So we expect that they will be listed in some of the US indices, and that should create some passive demand for Anglo Gold. So hopefully it does provide some support for the share price.
So Anglo Gold for Sanelisiwe with a nice kicker there, and NVIDIA, a different type of mining, I guess, for you, David Shapiro. That's all for Stockwatch today. Thanks to our guest, David Shapiro from Sasfin Securities and Sanelisiwe Tofile from All Weather Capital. Do note Stockwatch will be pre-recorded at 12:30 on Friday. Be sure to send those questions via email to stockwatch@bdtv.co.za. Up next, The Close. Stay watching.